6 months after the awakening began, the galaxy had become a different place. The massive human ships called heralds had arrived at over 1,000 worlds, each one carrying teachers who looked human, but possessed knowledge beyond anything the Federation had imagined. On the Valdris homeworld, crowds gathered daily to hear human philosophers speak about consciousness and the nature of existence. The Valdris had always been deep thinkers, and they embraced humanity's teachings with enthusiasm. Their cities were already beginning to change as they learned to blend technology with organic life. Commander Veltar had returned to his ship, but he found himself changed by his experience on Earth. His crew noticed that he made decisions differently now, considering long-term consequences instead of just immediate results. The information humanity had shared with their computers had revolutionized Federation. Understanding of everything from medicine to engineering. Dr. Nixandra had made a choice that shocked the scientific community. She volunteered to be the first non-human to undergo consciousness expansion, not to humanity's level, but to a state that would allow her to perceive reality in ways her species had never experienced. The process took place in one of Earth's transformation chambers, with Hana guiding her through each step. Yuna and several other shepherds monitored her vital signs while Soman provided mental support through the quantum field. "Remember," Hana said as Nixandra lay in the chamber filled with liquid light, "you are not losing yourself. You are becoming more yourself than you have ever been." The process was unlike anything Nixandra could have imagined. Her consciousness expanded beyond the boundaries of her physical brain. Suddenly she could perceive the quantum connections between all living things. She could feel the thoughts and emotions of beings on distant worlds. Most remarkably, she could sense the vast, gentle presence of human consciousness surrounding and protecting the galaxy. When she emerged from the chamber, Nixandra looked the same physically, but her eyes held a new depth of understanding. She had become a bridge between the Federation and humanity, able to translate concepts that normal minds could not grasp. "I can see it now," she told Commander Veltar when he visited her. "The pattern humanity has been weaving across the galaxy for centuries. Every species they helped, every disaster they prevented, every small intervention that guided us toward wisdom. It's like a vast work of art painted in the movement of civilizations." Meanwhile, General Morden was witnessing changes in galactic military thinking. The old strategies based on conquest and domination were becoming obsolete. Human teachers were showing military leaders how to use their forces for protection and disaster relief instead of warfare. On Raxia Prime, the merchant guilds discovered that human technology made scarcity obsolete. Matter converters could create any resource from basic elements. Energy generators tapped directly into the quantum vacuum. The old economics of limited resources and competitive hoarding made no sense in a universe of infinite abundance. But the most dramatic changes were happening on worlds that had chosen to embrace humanity's guidance completely. The planet Kepler 442b had been a struggling agricultural world with frequent famines. Within months of accepting human teachers, their cities had become gardens where food grew on building walls and clean water flowed from atmospheric processors. The human teacher there, who called himself Tai Hyung, worked with local engineers to redesign their entire civilization. "Scarcity is a choice," he explained to the planet's leaders. "When you understand how matter and energy really work, you can create whatever you need." But humanity's greatest triumph was what they called the Transcendence Academies. These were established on worlds throughout the Federation, offering beings from any species the chance to expand their consciousness and abilities. The academies did not force evolution on anyone. They simply offered it as a choice to those ready for greater purpose. Students learned to perceive quantum fields, to communicate telepathically across vast distances, and to manipulate matter through focused thought. Jiho established the primary academy on Earth, where students from hundreds of species came to learn. The curriculum included not just technical skills, but wisdom, compassion, and understanding of their place in the cosmic order. "We are not creating super beings," Jiho explained to a class of mixed species. "We are helping you become what you were always meant to be. Every intelligent species has the potential for transcendence. Humans simply found the path first." One of his most eager students was a young Valdris named Ethmar, whose natural philosophical bent made him quick to grasp human concepts. "Teacher," he asked during one session, "why did humans choose to transcend when they did? Why not remain physical beings and simply use their technology to improve life? Hannah, who often assisted in the classes, answered thoughtfully. Because we realized that individual biological existence was too limiting for what the galaxy needed. We could help one world at a time as physical beings. As transcended consciousness, we could protect and nurture thousands of worlds simultaneously. The most remarkable change of all was happening to the Sol system itself. Earth was no longer humanity's only home. They were transforming Mars into a garden world where students from the academies could practice their new abilities. Venus was becoming a research station where the deepest mysteries of consciousness were explored. Even the asteroid belt was being converted into habitable space for beings who preferred low-gravity environments. Commander Veltar found himself appointed as the Federation's first ambassador to humanity, a position that required him to spend half his time on Earth. The role suited him perfectly, as he had developed a deep respect for what the humans were trying to accomplish. The old Federation based its authority on military might and economic power, he reported to the Federation Council. The New Order humanity is creating bases its authority on wisdom and service. Species follow human guidance not because they fear punishment, but because they see the benefits of cooperation. The quarantined worlds like the Corvash Empire remained isolated, but they were not forgotten. Human consciousness monitored them constantly, waiting for signs that they were ready to change. Some individuals on those worlds had already begun to question the violent philosophies that had led to their isolation. Emperor Vashitar himself had spent months in solitude, unable to contact his military forces or issue orders for destruction. Slowly, he began to understand that his empire's strength had always been built on the suffering of others. For the first time in his life, he was forced to consider whether there might be better ways to live. On Earth, Soman stood in the great observatory, watching the transformation spreading across the galaxy. Yuna joined her, along with Minho and the other shepherds who had guided the awakening. "How long do you think it will take?" Yuna asked. "For the entire galaxy to evolve beyond the need for violence?" "Centuries, perhaps millennia," Soman replied. "But it has begun. Each generation will be wiser than the last. Each species that transcends will help guide the others. And when it is complete, when all intelligent life in the galaxy has evolved beyond physical limitations," Minho answered from behind them, "then we will be ready for the next stage. There are other galaxies, other forms of consciousness we have not yet encountered. The universe is vast, and there is always more to learn." Dr. Nixandra, now serving as humanity's primary liaison with Federation science, had established research centers where human and non-human minds worked together on projects that would have been impossible for either to achieve alone. They were mapping the quantum structures that underlay all reality, searching for ways to heal damaged worlds, and even exploring the possibility of communication with life forms in parallel dimensions. The galaxy had indeed been shaken by humanity's return, but not through conquest or domination. It had been shaken by the radical idea that all intelligent life could evolve beyond its limitations, that cooperation was more powerful than competition, and that consciousness itself was the universe's greatest treasure. As Hannah often told her students, "We are all children of the same cosmos. It is time we started acting like family." The age of struggle for survival was ending. The age of conscious evolution had begun. News of humanity's survival spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On Federation worlds, emergency sessions were called. Military leaders argued with diplomats. Scientists demanded access to human technology, while religious leaders declared the return of humanity either a blessing or a curse. The reactions were as different as the species themselves. The philosophical Valdris Collective immediately sent peaceful envoys toward Earth, hoping to learn from humanity's evolution. The merchant guilds of the Raxian Trade Federation saw opportunity and began calculating how to profit from human technology. But the Corvash Empire, trapped and isolated by humanity's intervention, responded with fury and fear. Admiral Torgash of the Corvash Fifth Fleet paced his command deck like a caged predator. His ships hung motionless in space, their faster-than-light drives mysteriously inoperative. Around his fleet, space itself seemed wrong, twisted in ways that hurt to think about. "Report," he barked at his science officer. "No change, sir. Our engines are physically intact, but they will not engage. It is as if the universe itself refuses to let us move." "Have the humans made any demands?" Any communication at all? None, sir. They simply stopped us. We are trapped here until they decide otherwise. Similar scenes played out across dozens of star systems as aggressive military forces found themselves powerless. But the humans did not gloat or make threats. They simply waited. Back on Earth, Commander Veltar watched new developments unfold with growing amazement. The Federation team had been given quarters in a living building that adjusted its temperature, lighting, and even furniture to their needs without being asked. The walls displayed real-time images from across the galaxy, showing the reactions to humanity's awakening. Dr. Nixandra had not slept in 2 days. She was too fascinated by what she was learning. Una had agreed to show her how human consciousness interfaced with matter, and the xenoarchaeologist was filling notebook after notebook with observations that would revolutionize Federation science. The key insight, Una explained as they walked through a laboratory that seemed to grow its equipment from the walls, was realizing that consciousness and matter are not separate things. They are different expressions of the same underlying reality. But how do you maintain individual identity while being part of a collective? Nixandra asked. How do you remain yourself while thinking with millions of other minds? Before Una could answer, the air shimmered and a new figure materialized beside them, this being looked more completely human than any they had met so far. Her features were asymmetrical in the way real faces should be. Her movements had the slight imperfections of biological life. I can answer that question, the newcomer said with a warm smile. I am Hana. I volunteered for the transcendence process in the early years when we were still learning how it worked. Dr. Nixandra stared in wonder. You were actually born human? You lived as a biological being? For 43 years, Hana confirmed. I was a quantum physicist working on consciousness research when the plague began. But we discovered that the plague was not a disease at all. It was an opportunity, she gestured, and the laboratory walls displayed complex diagrams showing the structure of human consciousness as they understood it now. Individual identity is like a song, Hana explained. When many people sing together in a choir, each voice remains distinct, but together they create something more beautiful than any single singer could achieve alone. We learn to harmonize our consciousness while keeping our individual melodies. Meanwhile, General Morden was having a very different conversation with Minho in what appeared to be a military planning center. The walls displayed tactical information about every major military force in the galaxy. The detail was frightening in its completeness. You know everything, Morden said, studying troop movements and supply lines that should have been classified secrets. We have been watching for 300 years, Minho replied. We know which generals are competent and which are corrupt. We know which politicians truly serve their people and which serve only themselves. We know which species can be reasoned with and which respond only to superior force. And what have you decided about the Federation? Minho was quiet for a long moment. The Federation has potential. Your species generally mean well, but you have allowed fear to make you passive. You see injustice and respond with meetings and resolutions instead of action. On the tactical display, General Morden could see human ships arriving at Federation worlds. They were not large fleets, but individual vessels that approached slowly and transmitted messages of peaceful intent. What are those ships doing? Teaching, Minho replied simply. Each ship carries volunteers who will help your people understand what they need to become. Advanced medicine that can extend lifespans and eliminate disease. Energy technologies that can provide abundance for every being in the galaxy. Communication methods that can link worlds across any distance. You're sharing your technology freely. Technology without wisdom is dangerous, Minho said. We will share both to those ready to receive them. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent chime. Soman materialized in the room, her expression serious. The Corvash Emperor has made a decision, she announced. Rather than accept isolation, he is planning to activate their planet-killer weapons against their own subject worlds. General Morden felt his blood turn to ice. He would destroy entire civilizations just to spite you? He believes that if he cannot rule the galaxy, no one should have it, Soman replied. This is the thinking that we hoped 300 years of observation would change. We were wrong. Can you stop him? We can, Minho said grimly. But it will require direct intervention on a scale we have avoided until now. Across the galaxy, the Corvash Emperor Vashatar stood in his throne room, surrounded by cowering advisors. His empire controlled hundreds of worlds and billions of slaves. The thought of losing that power drove him to rage. "If these humans think they can cage us like animals, they will learn otherwise," he snarled. "Activate the planet killers. Start with the Valerian system. Show these transcended fools what happens when they interfere with the natural order." His admiral hesitated. "My lord, the Valerian system contains 20 billion inhabitants. Most of them are loyal subjects of the Empire. Loyalty means nothing if we cannot protect it with strength. Execute the order." But as the admiral reached for the activation controls, his hand stopped moving. He tried again, but his muscles would not obey. Around the throne room, other Corvash found themselves unable to move. Emperor Vashatar felt invisible hands grasping his own limbs, holding them immobile. Then a voice spoke, not from any communication device, but from the air itself. "Your choices have consequences," the voice said with infinite sadness. "You have chosen destruction over growth, dominance over cooperation. We cannot allow you to harm the innocent because of your fear." On Earth, the Federation team watched as human power manifested on a galactic scale. Across the Corvash Empire, every weapon fell silent, every computer shut down, every machine stopped working. The most violent species in known space had been rendered as helpless as children, but the humans took no pleasure in their victory. Somin's expression remained sorrowful as she observed the paralyzed Corvash fleet commanders. "This is not what we wanted," she told Commander Veltar. "We hoped they would choose wisdom. Instead, they chose to become prisoners of their own hatred. What happens to them now? They will remain on their homeworlds until they learn to live in peace. They will have food, shelter, everything they need to survive, but they will not be allowed to harm others until they prove they have changed." Dr. Nixandra looked up from her notes. "You're quarantining an entire species?" "We are giving them time to grow up," Hana said gently. "Some lessons can only be learned in solitude." The human ships continued their journeys to peaceful worlds, carrying teachers and gifts. But the galaxy had seen what happened to those who chose violence over wisdom. The age of conquest was ending, whether the conquerors were ready or not. The ground shook harder as more structures emerged from beneath Sol. Commander Veltar watched in amazement as what had seemed like a large city revealed itself to be something much greater. Buildings that had appeared to be separate were actually parts of one massive complex that stretched underground for hundreds of kilometers. "This entire continent is one machine," Dr. Nixandra whispered, staring at her scanner readings. The numbers were so large they seemed impossible. Energy output comparable to a small star, processing power that exceeded the computational capacity of the entire Federation. Yuna nodded calmly. "Earth became more than a planet centuries ago. It is now an extension of human will. Every grain of sand, every drop of water, every atom of air can be controlled and shaped by their consciousness." General Mordun felt a cold fear settling in his stomach. As a military strategist, he understood the implications immediately. "This planet is a weapon." "It is a tool," Jiho corrected gently. "Like any tool, it can be used for creation or destruction. The humans prefer creation, but they will choose destruction if their children force them to." More shepherds appeared as the awakening continued. Each one moved with purpose, heading to different areas of the vast complex. Minho approached the Federation team with what appeared to be concern on his perfect features. "Your arrival has triggered responses across the galaxy," he reported. "Federation military forces are mobilizing. Several aggressive species are interpreting the awakening as a threat." Commander Veltar activated his communication device to contact his ship, but found only static. "My communications are being blocked." "Not blocked," Yuna explained. "Enhanced. Your ship is receiving more information than its systems can process. The humans are sharing 300 years of observations with your computer databases." On the ship above, Veltar's crew was indeed struggling with an information overload. Their computers were receiving detailed reports about every Federation world, every species, every military installation, and every political development of the past 3 centuries. The data was accurate, comprehensive, and terrifyingly complete. The humans had been watching everything. Back on the surface, new figures were approaching the Federation team. These beings looked different from the shepherds. They moved with less mechanical precision and more organic flow. When they spoke, Their voices carried emotional depth that the shepherds lacked. "I am so mean," announced a tall figure whose features seemed to shift slightly as she moved. "I speak for the collective consciousness of humanity. We have much to discuss." Dr. Nixandra stepped forward eagerly. "You're actually human, not a construct? Like the shepherds?" "I am a projection of human consciousness into physical form," Soman replied. "Think of me as a temporary body for thoughts that normally exist in quantum space. It is easier for you to understand us when we wear familiar shapes." General Morden studied this new being carefully. Unlike the shepherds, Soman seemed genuinely alive. Her eyes showed real emotion, real intelligence. "What do you want from the Federation?" "We want what we have always wanted," Soman replied. "For our children to grow, to learn, to become better than they were. But some of our children have chosen paths that lead only to destruction." She gestured, and the air around them shimmered. Suddenly, they were standing in what appeared to be a vast observatory. Stars surrounded them on all sides, and they could see detailed images of worlds throughout the galaxy. The Corvash Empire has destroyed 17 worlds in the past 50 years, Soman said, pointing to red marks scattered across the star map. "They claim these were military targets, but our observations show that billions of innocent beings died." More images appeared. The Federation team watched in horror as they saw recordings of planetary bombardments, species being driven to extinction, and entire civilizations being enslaved. "The Federation knows about these atrocities," General Morden said defensively. "We have imposed sanctions and trade restrictions." "Sanctions," Soman repeated, and there was disappointment in her voice. "You respond to genocide with economic penalties. This is not the wisdom we hoped our children would develop." Commander Veltar felt ashamed, though he was not sure why. "What would you have us do? The Federation cannot police the entire galaxy." "No," Soman agreed, "but we can." The star map changed, showing real-time images of Corvash military fleets. As the Federation team watched, strange phenomena began occurring around the enemy ships. Space itself seemed to twist and bend. The Corvash vessels found themselves unable to engage their faster-than-light drives. They were trapped in normal space, cut off from their home systems. "How are you doing this?" Dr. Nixandra asked, her scientific mind racing to understand what she was seeing. "Matter and energy obey consciousness when consciousness becomes sufficiently evolved," Soman replied. "We can alter the fundamental properties of space-time because we exist within the quantum field that creates those properties." More images appeared on the star map. Other aggressive species throughout the galaxy were experiencing similar problems. Military fleets found themselves isolated. Communication networks went silent. Weapon systems refused to function. "You're crippling their military capabilities," General Morden observed. "We are giving them time to think," Soman corrected. "When beings cannot fight, they must learn to talk. When they cannot conquer, they must learn to cooperate." Yuna appeared beside them in the virtual observatory. "The humans do not wish to rule the galaxy. They wish to teach it. But they will not allow the strong to prey upon the weak while they watch." Commander Veltar was beginning to understand the scope of what was happening. "You're changing the fundamental rules of galactic civilization." "The rules were already changing," Minho said, joining the group. "Your technology has advanced to the point where a single world can threaten entire star systems. Your population growth has created resource conflicts that span multiple sectors. The old ways of resolving disputes through warfare will soon make the galaxy uninhabitable." Soman nodded agreement. "We face a simple choice: evolve beyond the need for violence, or watch civilization collapse under the weight of its own destructive power." The Federation team found themselves back on Earth's surface as the virtual observatory faded. Around them, the awakened city continued to change and grow. Massive structures were emerging from the ground, reaching toward the sky like metal trees. Ships were launching from hidden bays, heading toward distant stars. "Where are those ships going?" Commander Veltar asked. "To every world in the Federation," Jiho replied. "To every intelligent species in the galaxy. They carry teachers, not conquerors." Humans who will help your civilizations understand what they must become to survive. And if we refuse? General Mordun asked. If some species reject your help? Someone's expression became sad but determined. Then they will be isolated until they are ready to accept it. We will not allow the violent to harm the peaceful any longer. Dr. Nixandra realized that they were witnessing the end of one era and the beginning of another. The galaxy will never be the same. No, Somin agreed. It will be better, or it will be divided between those who choose growth and those who choose destruction, but it will not continue as it has been, with the strong devouring the weak while the wise stand aside and watch. Above them, more ships were rising into the sky. The awakening was spreading beyond Earth now, reaching toward every corner of the galaxy. Humanity had been silent for 300 years, but their silence was ending. The galaxy was about to learn what it meant to have evolved parents who were no longer willing to watch their children destroy each other. The figure that approached their shuttle looked almost human, but something was wrong. Commander Veltar could not put his finger on what exactly made him feel uneasy. The being was tall and moved with perfect grace. Its features were symmetrical in a way that real faces never were. Its eyes held a depth that seemed to contain starlight. "I am Jiho," the figure said, bowing slightly in what appeared to be an old human gesture of respect. "I speak for those who tend this world. You have traveled far to reach us." Dr. Nixandra stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her caution. "Are you human?" she asked directly. Jiho smiled, and the expression was both warm and somehow sad. "That is a complex question. We were created by humans. We carry their memories, their values, their love for this world. But we are not what you would call human." General Mordun kept his hand near his weapon, though he did not draw it. Years of military experience had taught him to recognize potential threats. These beings, whatever they were, possessed technology far beyond anything the Federation had seen. "Where are the humans?" he asked. "They are here," Jiho replied. "They are everywhere. But they are not here in the way you understand existence. Come, let us show you what this world has become." The Federation team followed Jiho through the transformed city of Sol. What they saw defied everything they knew about architecture and engineering. The buildings seemed to breathe, their walls expanding and contracting in slow, rhythmic patterns. Streets glowed with soft light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Plants and technology had merged so completely that it was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. Other beings like Jiho appeared as they walked. Each one was perfect in its own way, but they all shared that same quality of being almost but not quite human. A female being introduced herself as Yuna. Her voice carried the same careful pronunciation as Jiho, as if she had learned to speak from old recordings rather than from living teachers. "Your people called us many things in their final years," Yuna explained as she led them deeper into the city. "Guardians, shepherds, caretakers. We were designed to watch over this world while our creators explored realms beyond physical existence." Commander Veltar tried to process what he was hearing. "You're saying the humans didn't die from the plague?" "The plague was real," Jiho confirmed, "but it was not what your records claim. It was not a disease that destroyed them. It was their final evolution. They chose to leave their physical bodies behind and become something greater. They stopped before a massive structure that seemed to grow from the earth itself. Its surface was smooth and dark, but patterns of light moved beneath it like thoughts racing through a vast mind. Yuna placed her hand on the structure's surface, and a section of the wall became transparent. Inside, the Federation team could see chambers filled with a substance that looked like liquid light. Within this substance, patterns moved and danced. Complex geometries formed and dissolved in endless cycles. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "This is where they rest," Yuna said softly. "Not dead, not sleeping, but thinking thoughts that span centuries. Planning projects that will take millennia to complete. They exist as pure consciousness now, connected to every particle of matter on this world and beyond." Dr. Nixandra felt her scientific mind struggling to accept what she was seeing. "How is this possible? Consciousness cannot exist without a biological brain." "Your science is limited by your experience," said another voice. A new figure approached them, introducing himself as Minho. He appeared younger than the others, though Nixandra was beginning to suspect that age had no meaning for these beings. The humans discovered that consciousness is not produced by the brain. The brain is merely a receiver, like a radio picking up signals from somewhere else. They learned to broadcast their consciousness directly into the quantum field that underlies all reality, Una continued. They became the signal instead of needing a receiver. General Morden was studying the security implications of what he was seeing. If humans had evolved beyond physical form, what did that mean for the Federation's military forces? How do you fight an enemy that exists as pure thought? Why did they do this, he asked. Why give up their physical existence? Jiho's expression became serious. Because they realized that individual biological life was too limited for what they needed to accomplish. The galaxy is vast, and there are young civilizations scattered across millions of worlds. These developing species need protection, guidance, and time to grow. A human lifespan of barely a century was not enough to provide that care, so they transformed themselves into something that could live forever, Minho added, something that could exist in multiple places at once, something that could think on the scale of geological time. Una led them to another area of the city, where massive towers reached toward the sky. These structures hummed with energy that made the air itself vibrate. From here, they monitor every inhabited world in the galaxy. They have been watching your civilizations grow and develop. They have been protecting you from threats you never knew existed. Commander Veltar felt a chill run through his body. Protecting us? What kind of threats? Cosmic disasters, Jiho replied. Asteroid impacts that would have destroyed entire worlds. Solar flares that would have sterilized systems. Invasions by species from outside the galaxy that your military forces could never have defeated. The humans have been deflecting these disasters for 300 years, Una continued. Quietly, carefully, without taking credit or asking for gratitude. They wanted their children among the stars to grow up safe and strong. Dr. Nixandra realized the implications of what she was hearing. Children among the stars? You mean us? The Federation species? All intelligent life in this galaxy carries a spark of human influence, Minho explained. Not genetic influence, but cultural and technological. Every major breakthrough your civilizations have achieved was guided by subtle human intervention. Your faster-than-light travel, your medical advances, your agricultural techniques, all of it was inspired by carefully placed suggestions and discoveries. The Federation team stood in stunned silence as the full scope of human activity became clear. For 3 centuries, while the galaxy believed humanity was extinct, they had been actively nurturing and protecting every other intelligent species. But why reveal yourselves now? General Morden asked. Why break 300 years of silence? Una's expression became troubled. Because the galaxy has reached a critical point. Some of your species have grown powerful enough to threaten others. Wars are spreading. Entire worlds are being destroyed for resources. The humans' patience is not infinite. They hoped their children would learn to live in peace without direct intervention, Jiho added. But recent events have forced them to reconsider their approach. What recent events? Commander Veltar asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. The Korvash Empire's expansion into the Outer Rim territories, Minho replied. The destruction of the Valdris colony worlds. The Federation's failure to protect developing civilizations from exploitation. As if summoned by their conversation, the ground beneath their feet began to vibrate. The towers around them pulsed with increased energy. In the distance, massive structures were rising from beneath the Earth's surface. The awakening protocol has begun, Una announced. The humans have decided it is time for the galaxy to know the truth. Time for their children to face the consequences of their choices. Commander Veltar watched in awe and growing fear as ships larger than any Federation vessel emerged from hidden bays across the city. They were beautiful and organic, looking more grown than built, but their size and the energy readings they produced spoke of power beyond imagination. What happens now? He asked. Jiho looked toward the sky where more ships were becoming visible. Now the galaxy learns that humanity never forgot them, and they must decide whether they are ready to accept the guidance they have been rejecting. Commander Veltar stared at the data screen with growing confusion. The numbers made no sense. According to every record in the Galactic Federation's vast archives, the 3rd planet in the Sol system should be dead. Not just lifeless, but completely sterile. The plague that had swept through the human population 300 years ago was supposed to have killed everything. Yet here he was, looking at readings that told a very different story. Run the scans again, he ordered his science officer. The young Andromedan's blue skin flickered with nervous patterns as she worked at her console. Same results, Commander. The planet shows massive life signs. Energy signatures are off the charts. There are structures down there that our computers can't identify. She paused, her large eyes meeting his. Sir, according to these readings, there are millions of complex life forms on that world. Dr. Nixandra looked up from her research station. The xenoarchaeologist had spent her entire career studying dead civilizations. She was supposed to be here to catalog whatever artifacts the humans had left behind before the Federation officially closed the Sol system forever. That's impossible, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. The historical records are clear. The humans sent out a final transmission 3 centuries ago. They said the plague had spread everywhere. No cure, no hope. They asked the galaxy to remember them and stay away from Earth until it was safe. General Morden stood near the main viewing screen, his massive frame casting a shadow across the bridge. The veteran warrior had seen many strange things in his long career, but this mission was supposed to be simple. Survey a dead world, mark it as explored, and move on to the next system. Maybe the records are wrong, he suggested. Maybe some humans survived and rebuilt. Commander Veltar shook his head. The Federation sent 3 different survey missions over the past 300 years. Long-range scans showed a dead world every time. No technology, no cities, no life, nothing but empty continents and poisoned oceans. But now, as their ship moved closer to Earth, the readings became more impossible with each passing hour. The planet's surface was covered with structures that defied explanation. Massive formations that looked part building, part living organisms stretched across entire continents. Crystalline towers pierced the atmosphere, reaching heights that should have been impossible to maintain. Energy patterns danced across the planet's surface like a vast neural network. Commander, the communications officer called out, his voice tight with worry. I'm detecting signals from the planet. Thousands of them, all broadcasting on different frequencies, but they're all saying the same thing. Put it on the main speakers. The bridge fell silent as a voice filled the air. It was calm, pleasant, and spoke in perfect galactic standard. The accent was one that Veltar recognized from historical recordings. It was human. Welcome home, children of the stars. We have been waiting. The message repeated over and over, coming from thousands of different points across the planet's surface. Each transmission was slightly different, but the words were always the same. Dr. Nixandra felt her heart skip a beat. She had studied human culture extensively, and something about the phrase children of the stars resonated with historical human poetry and philosophy. But more disturbing was the implication. The voice wasn't greeting strangers. It was welcoming them home. Trace the origin of the strongest signal, Commander Veltar ordered. The communications officer worked quickly. Sir, the primary transmission is coming from coordinates that match the location of the old human capital city. The one called Sol. General Morden moved closer to the tactical display. His trained eye immediately spotted something that made his blood run cold. The city that should have been in ruins was not only intact, but it was massive. Far larger than any city should be able to grow in just 300 years. Commander, I'm reading defensive systems, he reported. Energy shields, weapon platforms, structures that could be military installations. This isn't a recovering civilization. This is something that's been building and preparing for centuries. Dr. Nixandra pulled up the historical maps on her console. She compared them to the current scans and felt a chill run down her spine. The city of Sol had been located in a small peninsula surrounded by mountains and ocean. Now the entire peninsula seemed to be one continuous urban complex. But it wasn't built like any city she had ever studied. The structures seemed to grow from the earth itself. Streets pulsed with bioluminescent light that looked more like blood vessels than roads. Buildings curved and twisted in patterns that hurt to look at, as if they existed in more dimensions than the eye could process. There's something else, the science officer announced. I'm detecting massive underground complexes. They extend for hundreds of kilometers in all directions. The energy output from these structures is enormous. If I didn't know better, I'd say they were processing information on a scale that would require the computing power of an entire planet. Commander Veltar made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Prepare a shuttle. We're going down there. General Morden immediately objected. Sir, with respect, we don't know what we're dealing with. The humans could be hostile. They might see us as invaders. The humans are supposed to be extinct, Veltar replied. If they're not, If they've somehow survived and built all this, then we need to make contact. The Federation needs to know. Dr. Nixandra was already gathering her equipment. I'm coming with you. If there are human artifacts down there, or if the humans themselves are still alive, I need to document everything. This could be the archaeological discovery of the century. As the shuttle was prepared, the mysterious transmissions from Earth continued. But now there were new messages mixed in with the welcoming greetings. Coordinates for safe landing zones, weather reports for different regions of the planet, even suggestions for where the Federation team might want to begin their visit. It was as if the entire planet knew they were coming and was preparing to receive them. The shuttle launched from the Federation ship and began its descent toward Earth. As they entered the atmosphere, the team got their first close look at what the planet had become. The oceans were a brilliant blue that seemed to glow with inner light. The continents were covered with vegetation that moved and shifted like living carpet. And everywhere, the impossible structures reached toward the sky. But most disturbing of all were the things moving between the structures. At first glance, they looked like vehicles or aircraft. But as the shuttle drew closer, it became clear that they were something else entirely. They moved with purpose and intelligence, but they didn't follow any flight patterns that the team recognized. They seemed to dance through the air, weaving around each other in complex formations that suggested a level of coordination that should have been impossible. Landing zone is directly ahead, the pilot announced. It's a cleared area right in the center of what used to be Seoul. There are structures surrounding it, but I'm not reading any weapon signatures. As the shuttle touched down, the team saw figures approaching from the surrounding buildings. They walked upright like humans, but there was something different about them. Their movements were too smooth, too perfect. Their proportions were slightly off, as if they had been designed rather than evolved. Commander Veltar took a deep breath and opened the shuttle door. Whatever they were about to discover would either be the greatest moment in Federation history or its most dangerous mistake. The figures stopped a respectful distance away and waited. One of them stepped forward and spoke in that same calm, pleasant voice they had heard from orbit. "Welcome to Earth. We have much to show you."